I was in Washington, D.C. about 3 weeks ago, and we saw a film called Eno. And it was about Brian Eno, the visionary and musician who both produced Talking Heads and U2, to name a few. And he had 400 plus hours of footage that had been just archived. And the director Hutswith ended up asking him if they could do a film together, and he'd always said no to film, but this idea was different. There was an AI generative software that was being created where you would actually have AI edit the film in real time. So they did a showing on the West Coast and then in the East Coast, and I happened to be at the East Coast to watch that one. And the idea is that you would never watch the same film twice. So they did live interviews, and then all the 400 hours of footage were in real time edited by AI, and so the film was continuously changing, but they stuck with the same beginning and ending of it so that you'd never watch it twice. Isn't that fascinating? I'd never thought of how, I hadn't even imagined what AI would do with film, which is a huge, huge experience for us in our modern time. And so our contemporary time, we're already seeing it affect so many different areas, but it was refreshing to see, wow, there are so many other applications to what AI is going to be doing in the future. But there's also that fear. There's that Terminator generation of we're going to all be annihilated or destroyed or lessened because of AI as well. There's a tension, right, for what we're encountering with AI. So this is some of the reasons why Agora LA wanted to create this forum for discussion, to have some of the experts come and share their perspective on how we interact as humans and what it will do to us and with us. So I'm so excited to introduce them. So we want to bring up our experts here. The first one who's going to be coming and speaking is Don Patterson. He was a professor at Westmont and UCI, and he is currently, he's founded a cryptocurrency business as well, but he's going to be speaking on the ethics of AI, and after he speaks, for just a moment, we're going to also hear from Julie Fruman, who works as a family therapist. He's going to deal with the other side too, the how it impacts human relationships and how we find satisfaction even in the midst of technology. So let's give it up for Don Patterson.
Thank you very much. I'm going to have a little timer here because I'm going to be talking about what it means to be human, and there's a lot to say. So I'm going to turn a fire hose on you, but I'm going to try and keep to my time. So I'm just going to set that down there. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a great honor to be here. It's always one of the things I really love is doing public speaking, because you get to hear about what people outside of academia are concerned about and what's on their mind, and it's just a lot of, it's very enriching to be able to have that dialogue with folks. So I'm very excited to be here to be able to chat about stuff with you all. And also, some of the most generative things that I've done in my career have been born out of environments like this, kind of non-academic dialogues among people who are just interested in a topic and maybe are a little bit OCD. So that's a formula for a lot of impact and learning as well. So I hope that I hope that happens tonight. Let me get out of the way. Can I get here without showing this being in the way? Good. So tonight I'd like to talk a little bit about artificial intelligence and what it means to be human. My background is as a professor and now as an entrepreneur. My background's in computer science, but it has gone from being computer engineering and hardware up until what I would say we call informatics, or computer science in a liberal arts environment, where we think a lot about the interaction between social issues and the technical issues. And we use a term called socio-technical design to discuss that. And one of the things that really means is that we recognize that technology doesn't just drop out of the sky on us suddenly. It has a historical trajectory that it comes from. It is supported by infrastructures of production. You don't have a cell phone without cell phone towers. You don't have a cell phone without credit cards. You don't have a cell phone without all of the metal and things that go into the cell phone. So they don't just drop out of the sky, and they inform each other. So technology informs the social environment, it changes the social environment, and then the social environment pushes back and changes the technology or uses the technology in a way that wasn't originally intended. And this back and forth is just the way that technology and society evolve as they go along. So let's see, do I signal you to switch slides? Okay, boom. All right, so that's me, and this is the title slide, and I've got a, great. All right, so first, I've already heard some really insightful thoughts about AI itself. So AI is an abbreviation. It stands for artificial intelligence. And I will say that as a technologist, we don't use the word AI very often because it's really, really ambiguous. It doesn't actually mean anything very much to people who are in the technology side. What it is used for in the popular discourse is to kind of talk about our fears about what is coming down the pike from a technology standpoint. Once a problem has been solved, it's no longer considered AI. Let me give you some examples. A self-driving car, that used to be AI. Now no one really thinks of it as AI, it's a self-driving car. Or image recognition, that used to be like science fiction entirely, but now it's image recognition. And oh yeah, so there's Photos app on Apple recognizes faces, and maybe there's some good and bad things that come with that. Siri used to be AI, and now it's just like a voice assistant, right? So as soon as we solve a problem, it gets a name, it becomes a lot less mysterious. Doesn't mean that doesn't have impact, but it just to point out to you that when you say AI, we're not being very specific. We're talking about something that is not very well defined, and within this room, you all might be meaning things that are really different when you're having a conversation. So as you dialogue, think about that a little bit. What exactly do you mean when you say AI? Sometimes it's a fear of the future, sometimes you mean computer, sometimes you mean algorithm. We're all interacting daily with things that used to be called AI. So even if you drove here and a Tesla didn't run into you, that was AI, right? Okay, next. Okay, so let's talk for a moment about being human. And I would like to not try and qualify what counts as being human tonight. That's a really hard thing to do because anything that you might say is required to be human, you can point out some animal that has a similar behavior. Or you'll point out a kind of human or a class of human that doesn't have that property, and then you're sort of flummoxed. So instead, what I'd like to do is think about things that we value in our humanity and think about the way that technology is deconstructing and reconstructing those ideas that we have, rather than getting stuck on is this human or is it not human? Because that's not nearly as productive as deciding what are the things that we want to cherish and encourage and keep. Okay, here are the three that I want to throw out at you. This is the fire hose turning on right now. So the first one is agency, the second one is mortality, and the third one is community. All right, so kind of like the movie theater, AMC. All right, next. All right, so what do I mean by agency? I'm not talking about a PR agency. I'm talking about the ability for someone to make meaningful choices in their life. The ability for you to decide to order coffee, not order coffee, and then for you to appreciate the benefits of that choice and to be accountable for the choice that you made as well. So I would say that's agency. Depending on your background, you might have a slightly different take on that. But what we see, or maybe another way to talk about it, is as limited free will. I might like to fly to Paris, but no matter how hard I flap my arms, I'm not going to get there. So I don't have complete free will. Even if I wanted to get on an airplane, I couldn't actually get there within 30 minutes. So free will and agency is always constrained. It's always constrained by the real world. It's constrained by a bunch of different stuff. And one of the tensions that's going on in our public discourse right now is trying to understand when social structures are impeding our free will and when our individual agency is not being exercised. So an example of that would be something like free speech. Free speech is kind of an act of individual agency, and there's a lot of concern that people don't have free speech. That would be a social structure that's prohibiting individual agency in the realm of free speech. Or you might think about post-1930s, the redlining that went on with mortgages that prevent a social structure, redlining, that prevented people from getting mortgages based on race largely, and therefore they did not have the same agency that other people had because of a social structure that was in place. So social structures limit free will, limit agency, and they don't always do it equally. And this is like, if you think about that for a moment, this is sort of central to a lot of the struggles that we're having in public dialogue and political dialogue right now. And thinking about it in terms of, okay, there's a balance here. Sometimes people they make decisions with agency, and sometimes they're constrained by that. That's kind of reality, right? That's the way the world is. And trying to set up a social structure where we think that's in balance is an important part of what we're doing in this dialogue, I think. Okay, so let me give you, this is a quote that sort of talks about why agency is important from Richard Miles, who's a historian and archaeologist. Civilization as a term suggests human agency. Things don't come together organically. There are winners and losers, and human will created the world we live in. And it will create the world we live in tomorrow. And so exercising that agency is really important. Enter the AI. Okay, so what I am concerned about as a computer scientist is secondary agency. Secondary agency is when we give artificial intelligence, remember it's sort of vague, computers in general, the opportunity to make choices for which no humans are accountable anymore. And let me give you some examples. It's kind of hard to see, but down here is a Boston Dynamics robot with a bunch of guns on the top of it. This is an art project from the art collective Mischief, if any of you are familiar with that. They're famous for doing these crazy drops all the time. And it was to demonstrate sort of the idea that there are, coming down the pike, drones and robots with guns on them that will likely be making decisions about lethal force on their own without a soldier or a general involved. If the US doesn't do it, some other country is going to do it. And the problem with this, or the scary thing about this, is that we have given our agency to this artificial intelligence, and there's no accountability necessarily. An aid worker got shot by a robot. Well, I don't know, the robot made a mistake. What can you do? There's nothing that can be done. So that's a concern, secondary agency. That's pretty dramatic. Housing assignment. If anyone has read the book Automating Inequality by Virginia Eubanks, she tells a story about locally here in LA, a system that's responsible for assigning housing resources to people without homes. And it was a system that was designed to help prevent bias from the assignment of the resources to folks that don't have homes. And in that way, it's very successful. But in another way, it's a black box where people do get resources or don't get resources, and they're not quite sure why. And the social workers who are on the ground, they certainly aren't programmers, and they don't know what's going on. And so this algorithm, this program, has kind of taken on secondary agency, where we're kind of like, I don't know, you don't get housing. I can't really say why. Certainly at the social worker level. There's probably someone somewhere that knows how. We have a similar thing going on with healthcare. If you don't get insurance, you might not be told why. For me, this is a picture of my neighbor's house during the Thomas fire. It came very close. We were evacuated 5 times. How many people were affected by the Thomas fire? It was a little bit north of here, so 2%, maybe a handful. But you're certainly aware of wildfires. Welcome to California. Yeah. So after this wildfire, we no longer were able to get house insurance, home insurance for our house. And we didn't quite know why. I used USAA as my insurance company, and we asked to renew our home insurance, and they said, no, we can't renew that. You're in too risky of a zone. And I'm like, wait, who made that decision? And it was the computer. The computer decided that. And if you dig into it a little bit, you find out that there's this white label statistics provider that works for all the insurance agencies, and they decided to draw a line on a particular road at the bottom of our street, the left of which you get insurance and the right of which you can't. And there's not really much I can do about that. And that's kind of secondary agency. We've given our ability to make decisions and be accountable for those decisions to computers. Some good things, bias is reduced, probably better outcomes for the insurance company. Some bad things, like what's my recourse? I don't know. Yeah, okay, great. All right, so the fire hose is going fast. So let me argue that who should be responsible for choices made by AI? We should make sure we don't allow AI to take the blame. We should be blaming or giving credit to the programmers who program these systems, the companies that offer them, and then the organizations that deploy them as well. we should really, as much as possible, be insisting that we don't allow an answer the computer says no. Like, we can't allow that, because otherwise, if you go back to that quote by the archaeologist and historian, we start to lose control of our civilization. I mean, that's a little dramatic, but that's how we change the world, right? We have accountability, we decide how we're gonna operate, and if we relinquish that, we're really relinquishing something really important. Okay, second one, mortality. Here's an interesting question you can discuss, but it's pretty highbrow, so I'm not gonna talk about it a lot. But is turning off and deleting an AI program murder? Okay. More mundane, but what I deal with every day, is the new system with messaging and communication. As a professor, I get requests for exemptions from being late on assignments. And more recently, I've gotten emails that are like, "Dear Professor Patterson, I'm sorry I couldn't turn this in. It's a very well-written, 2-paragraph long email, which it gets down to the bottom. I would really like to have," and then there's square brackets, "enter assignment here, sincerely," square brackets, "student," as if I was emailed a Mad Libs. And that's characteristic of ChatGPT. So you'll get sent something like ChatGPT message, and the thing I want to point out about this is a little bit odd, but the reason why I would read something that someone wrote in 2 paragraphs is because they burned part of their life to write it to me, right? They took time before ChatGPT to write this thing to me. And so therefore, it is worth part of my life to read it. That's not true anymore. I can get very well-crafted letters, and I have no idea if they spent any time at all writing it. I don't want to spend my life reading stuff that no one cared about, but I don't know the difference anymore. And we're all kind of now stuck in this problem of, we don't know if the media we're getting actually consumed someone's creative energy or time, or whether it didn't. And that's deconstructing some of the ways in which we form community in light of our mortality. All right, and then last one, community, what we owe each other. Very quickly, this is Paro. He's a therapeutic seal. It's a stuffed animal. It was introduced in nursing homes in Japan as a way to improve depression and some mobility outcomes. It has cameras behind its eyes. It wiggles its tail. It has a pet sensor that you can pet it and it will respond to you. Researchers went in there and they found phenomenal success with improving depression by giving this robotic seal. 6 months later, research was continued and the effects had all gone away. And the hypothesis of what happened is that it wasn't the seal at all that improved the depression and the outcomes for the elderly patients. It was the fact that there were researchers in the nursing home interacting with the patients all the time, handing them the seal, taking the seal back. And I mention that because, and this is probably getting into your space a little bit, so I won't steal your thunder. There's a lot of AI therapy that's coming down the pike. And I have to say, if you ask ChatGPT to give you a pep talk, it's very good at that. And so I wouldn't throw it out entirely, but I am concerned about the fact that we're tricking ourselves into thinking that AI is a good therapist because of actual studies that have been done showing that it's novelty or the research or covariable effect. All right, so in conclusion, AI is rapidly advancing, but we're a little fuzzy about what AI is. It's challenging a lot of relationships that undergird our communities. Some of those relationships we desperately need to change, but other ones we really want to preserve. And we need to think carefully about which ones those are. And then there's some stuff down there, but that can, about integrity, but we can let that go. Pretty famous quote over here, a little meme by an author who says, "You know what the biggest problem with pushing all things AI is? Wrong direction. I want AI to do my laundry and dishes so that I can do art and writing, not for AI to do my art and writing so that I can do my laundry and dishes." So those are some thoughts on what it means to be human and how AI is deconstructing and reconstructing it, sometimes for good, sometimes for bad, but don't let them tell you the computer did it. Thank you. Thank you.